Rewind-A-Dynamite from the post-wrestling site. AEW, lighting up the fuse. Sit back and enjoy the bubbly, as we hear from John and Wai Ting. Where we're going, we don't need roads. And if the buck stops here, this thing might blow. Everything you hear are opinions of the show. And if you don't like it, go to the forums and let them know.
Hello, and welcome to our review of Predator. God damn.
You want to let everybody know why we're, 15 minutes late?
We're 12 minutes late. Because we have multiple rooms set up for all the goddamn shows that we're doing, that I was just sitting in a room, a StreamYard room that we don't need tonight. And I'm like, where the hell is Wai? Like, where is he? And I'm texting him and then realizing that it's my fault. And what a waste of 10 minutes.
Well, 10 very precious minutes. I mean, I was busy setting up everything. So I was just thinking, well, maybe it's due to this massive overrun that John is this late. But even for overrun standards, I felt this was a little bit unusual. So I was getting a bit concerned. So thankfully, we were able to find you. I almost exactly knew what had happened the moment that I saw your text. So yeah,
here I am. Here we are. Yes, we got a 7-minute overrun of Dynamite. Couldn't cram it all into 2 hours. This was necessary. Some segments we had to play twice just to make sure everyone got the cleanest video of this award-winning comedic sketch.
Overruns have long been a tactic to increase your average, haven't they?
Oh, we're going to see every tactic next Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
Limited commercial interruptions, overruns.
Yeah.
Do we get an underrun next week? Does someone do the Nitro trick, or the Raw trick, I should say, to combat Nitro, and they go on like 3 minutes early?
At this point, who knows? I can imagine the Cody clock making a return. Anything, throw it out there. It's going to be
the Cody clock might come back. Like, this is going to be every gimmick imaginable. Do we get the Cena clock?
Why don't you just set up multiple clocks?
They'll put in the graphic. You can see him in and the clock underneath.
Okay, sure.
We're going to get into all of this because that is setting the stage. But very interesting tonight, the fact that not only the Tuesday lineup we have, but Saturday, they have bumped Collision up. It will start an hour early at 7 p.m. Eastern time, and thus will get a jump on Fastlane, which they had to be looking after this past Saturday. Like, that Collision number got destroyed against No Mercy. You would have to think that even greater going against Fastlane that has John Cena on the show on Saturday. And it feels like these WWE events, they're just getting stronger the more collisions go up against them. Like, No Mercy provided a dent that SummerSlam and Payback did not.
Certainly, yeah. I mean, I think if I'm AEW Collision, if I'm TNT, this makes all the sense in the world. I imagine if they could have bumped this up 2 hours, they might have considered it, but
we'll see how this does. Like, you're looking at the hope that, number one, you get that pretty much an unopposed hour. I don't think now watch WWE put on a loaded kickoff show at 7 o'clock. But I mean, this is the game. And quite honestly, it's I think it's great, to be honest.
It's awesome. It's so exciting.
I don't know why. Like, I understand there is like an audience out there that hate the
what?
The ugliness that somewhat permeates throughout all of this.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I
hate the ugliness. You just have to stay away from it and enjoy the good stuff.
That's it. And it's like, I liken it to, it's like competing sports teams that, it goes over the line sometimes and you don't want to see that. But I mean, you as a consumer, it's like they're trying to, they are appealing to you and they are grabbing your attention, and you have the power to vote with your eyeballs of what product you prefer. You can watch all of it. You can watch none of it. You can go back and forth. I mean, this is sort of the foundation that so much of this current fandom was built upon in the late 90s, many of whom didn't get to live through that period. And you're getting it now, and you're getting better wrestling products as a result of it. Like, two companies that, would we have a WWE in this current state right now if there was no AEW for the past 4 years? We certainly would not be getting some of the money that these performers are making, but from an on-screen perspective. And I think conversely, I think you're going to have AEW that, I mean, they're looking at their business and how they can improve their domestic business as a result of WWE getting hot.
Competition is good for everybody, isn't it? You know, the only people that win are the wrestlers and us. Like, we're all the popular person at school, and these two companies are both trying to ask us out to prom next Tuesday, 8 p.m. So I feel very special right now.
You should. Well, we'll go over all of the lineups, but want to let everybody know that we have our Predator review not happening tonight, but instead Thursday, it will be coming up on the cafe.
Thursday, Rewind-A-Way. We don't often review movies, but this one we're making an exception for, because why? Jesse the Body Ventura, of course, stars in this, but beyond that, come on, Arnold Schwarzenegger, WWE Hall of Famer himself.
Oh, that's right.
So I've never seen this. John has never seen this either. At this moment in time, 10 p.m. on Wednesday, I still have not seen it yet. So I will make some time at some point to watch Predator, and John and I will talk about it tomorrow.
This one is not going to require the legwork that our next Rewind-A-Way, which is a beast that we will be covering, WrestleMania X7 this month. That will be the next Rewind-A-Way coming up in 2 weeks' time. So you're getting 2 Rewind-A-Ways this month. We have the whole menu item for October up on the site that you can check out. This month includes the return of MCU Later, which will be season 2 of Loki with WH Park and Rich Fan. They're going to be going through week by week. And for week number 1, the season premiere of season 2, we'll be putting it out for everybody this coming Monday.
Correct. Yeah, they'll be doing the show on Sunday evening, so you have the whole weekend to watch the show. And then on Monday, everybody can join in as they listen to Rich and WH MCU then.
Yes, so you can join on board at postwrestlingcafe.com. $6 gets you in the door and access to all of these bonus shows, which do include weekly shows covering SmackDown, Collision, and we will be doing multiple New Japan reviews this month, Ask Away, and Bound for Glory with myself and John Cena. And also coming up this week, some free shows coming your way Friday with Post Pro Res with WH Park and Karen Peterson. Lots to talk about in the world of Japanese wrestling, coming off the Stardom 5-star Grand Prix, Katsuhiko Nakajima, and New Japan, who has their Sumo Hall card on Monday. And then Saturday night, John Cena and Wai Ting will be covering WWE Fastlane head-to-head with Kate from Montreal and Bruce Lord, maybe. I don't know.
For an hour at least, you know.
Roughly,
yeah.
Yes.
That's right. Yeah, we'll have you covered no matter what. And again, just this particular week, John has been debuting his post-audio daily news updates. Those usually available for our higher tiered patrons. But if you sign up this week, you can get them this whole week on any tier. So go and check that out, along with ad-free versions of the podcast that you're listening to right now.
That's right. Rewind to Raw, Rewind to Dynamite, and our pay-per-view reviews will now be available ad-free for all members at all levels at postwrestlingcafe.com. So there you go. Those are all the programming notes. But let's talk a bit about some news items. And we're going to start off with the Tuesday head-to-head battle that is coming up next week. And this is going to be we were knowing that WWE was not going to just simply concede the night, so to speak. And you're watching Tuesday night's NXT, and they announced midway through the show, Asuka's coming next week to face Roxanne Perez. And you're just watching this being like, that can't be the only trick they have up their sleeve. And then it's in the final quarter. Carmelo Hayes just gets off the phone and announces his buddy John Cena is coming to NXT for his match against Braun Breaker. And Braun Breaker will have Paul Heyman in his corner. Now, you might think that is enough. No, Cody Rhodes is coming to NXT next Tuesday for a special announcement. He's going to announce that he is signed up for hip toss class at the Performance Center.
Ooh, goodness. Wow. He's going to cut a Cody promo outside of the realm of the WWE. You know, maybe this will be a return to a different Cody Rhodes. I don't know. But
is this a wink and a nod, Cody? It's going to be calling out the reason for him being here.
I can only hope. You know, could this be the return of Devontae in NXT?
Oh my goodness!
Yes. No, I mean, I thought Cody alone, I think, would probably be like as much as they would do. Cody plus maybe like a Becky Lynch match. Instead, they decided not to go the Becky route. Instead, saving her for what's the next Halloween Havoc.
Yeah, and it's not for another 3 weeks. Although they could probably have her appear next week.
Definitely, yes. You got Asuka in the mix as well. What I did not expect was them going to the real big dog here, the greatest of all time as they continue to push him, John Cena, appearing in the what is it? What do they call that thing?
The Performance Center.
No, the CWC. The
I don't
whatever.
really call it that as much anymore. I don't know if it really has a branding attached to it, but regardless,
Capital Wrestling Center or something.
sure. It actually, when we were talking about it Monday, like I was thinking legitimately before they announced it that like if ever there was a time that they would have access to a John Cena, this is probably the time. Like this may be the one and only time you could ever get Cena where his schedule is such that he is kind of blocked off this time for WWE, and they're bringing him in, and this is like I look at these two lineups, and this should certainly be you have to look at NXT here as having the decisive edge, but
I don't know about that. Well, no pun intended from you, I guess, right?
I just look at they're on the regular night. I think like look what Becky has done for these numbers, and I think Cena is going to mean that much more. Coupled with Cody, it's like who knows? I'm very interested to see what the combined audience ends up being, like what the peak like between both shows is of how many like unique fans are watching at a given point.
I have to think it'll be much higher than usual. To me, it feels like it's more than a fair fight. Yes, you have NXT that is, I think, largely perceived as the third brand of WWE, but they are rising really, really quickly, and they're adding a whole lot of ammunition in the form of the biggest stars that the company has to offer. They're on their regular night. AEW is moving to an irregular night, but they are stacking their entire card and their entire Tuesday show. And we know that AEW has an audience that is willing to follow them no matter what day of the week that they appear on. So I think it's a more than fair fight. And I don't know if either you can argue both sides have the advantage. And for that reason, I think it's a very fair fight.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I would say if AEW is very competitive with this lineup, I think that's like even if they do not if they are close to this NXT lineup, I take that as a win, being on the different night and what is being thrown against Tuesday's show. I mean, both are loaded up shows. So.
Wednesday though has some really big names. You can argue bigger names maybe throughout the course of the show compared to NXT. So I mean, let's go through the AEW Dynamite lineup right now. Why don't we? We have Rey Fenix versus Jon Moxley. We have Cope. That's all I'm going to call him from this point on. Cope versus
Ledge.
Cope taking on Luchasaurus. We got Jay White versus Hangman Adam Page, Powerhouse Hobbs versus Chris Jericho, Hikaru Shida versus Saraya for the AEW Women's Championship, and Swerve versus Bryan Danielson. So they're bringing out all their heavy hitters too for this Tuesday show.
Oh yeah, this is all like big names wrestling on television, and I think that Adam Copeland's first match, I mean, that should have some big curiosity, just being his first match outside of WWE. So it's a very loaded show going up against NXT, which as of now, in terms of just matches, we only have those two matches that have been announced so far, and we will see what is made over the coming week.
At this point, I wouldn't be surprised if dun Brock Lesnar shows up. Okay, throw in Randy Orton, Hulk Hogan, you name it. Everybody. Vince McMahon makes his return, his debut in NXT.
I mean, it will be one where, I mean, it's amazing how this has timed out for them to have like peaked all this for this particular week, just when it happens that Dynamite is moving to Tuesday night. All these like long-term stories that are coming to a head here. This long friendship between Carmelo Hayes and John Cena that all of a sudden is going to be realized in person on Tuesday.
Well, what are we saying here? That they shouldn't do something about their
no, absolutely not. They should be loading this up, but don't give us the double speak about that. Everything is competition for us. We look at everything. This is we like, just let's be honest. We are competing for the same audience on this Tuesday night. It's very clear, and you just kind of look silly when you're arguing anything but that. When look at the lengths we are going with to preserve our night against the competitor. And we're going to get this again in November, that Full Gear weekend, when Collision goes head to head with SmackDown on a Friday night as well. So that will again be AEW on a different night with a 2-hour head to head battle. And I'm sure that one will be built up significantly too.
So, within our own post little universe, of course, we were debating how we would possibly cover this evening. Of course, we covered Dynamite, as we will a little bit later on, but we also have our friends at Poison Rana who cover Up Next for us every single Tuesday. So we have come together. We have, shared our opposing views. We have decided to go head to head on the same show. All four of us will be doing the show together on Tuesday, whatever you want to call it, Super Tuesday, Tuesday Night Titans, whatever. It'll be a joint stream between Up Next and Rewind-A-Dynamite. All four of us, the BDE, Poison Rana, and John Pollock and Wai Ting, all together next week.
Okay, so tune into that Tuesday at whenever the overrun concludes.
Oh my God!
What if each side?
Overruns?
What if like each side is waiting for the other to blink? They won't go off the air till the other does.
This could be an Iron Man match. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that is coming up, and let's chat about some of the other news and ratings notes. So Collision, I mentioned 327,000 viewers on Saturday night and a 0.08 going against No Mercy, the lowest in the history of Collision over its 16 weeks, and a fall of 42% in viewership, 55% drop in the demo. 65% decline from the previous week of men 18 to 49 and a 49% drop in adults 18 to 34, 58% among adults 35 to 54. You get the picture here. If there's a conclusion way, this is a show. You know what the core audience is for Collision?
What's that?
Women 18 to 34 who are up this week. That was the only increase. It went from 12,000 to 14,000 this week, and that was it. They got slaughtered against No Mercy. Were you sensing that it would be this level of decline, or was this above what your expectation level was for an NXT show, albeit one that was built up really well and had a big name in Becky Lynch?
Mm-hmm. It was more than I was expecting. I was following. I mean, I reviewed Collision on Saturday, and I definitely sensed just throughout my own timeline, most of the attention was on No Mercy that evening. But even then, I don't know if I expected going in this much of a dent in Collision's numbers, and I think at this point, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, No Mercy is incredibly hot and feels like a real extension of the relevant programming that you get on Mondays and Fridays. And in many cases, especially if you're a Becky Lynch fan, it is, like it's the only show where you could really watch her do something of significance. So, whereas this edition of Collision, I don't know if it made any sort of special effort to feel like a unique must-see show, and that's the feeling I kind of came out of it. Yes, it was a novelty to see Jericho team with Kenny Omega, but I would have chosen No Mercy myself if I had the choice.
Yeah, I mean, it's one where like we clearly are seeing just how impactful these WWE shows are, and NXT is no exception either. And it will be interesting to see if they kind of augment any of this erosion this coming week by bumping it up an hour. I think it was the right choice, because I think just going with the same strategy this coming Saturday, we would have been talking about a new all-time low come next week when that number comes out. Will that be enough? We'll see. We talked about it today, myself and Brandon Thurston, but just tracking the premium live events that have gone against Collision, and even the fact going back to one of the first Collisions that aired the same day as Money in the Bank, which was the London show. So they didn't even air head to head, but still you saw Collision take a hit of just all these hours in one day. And that's going to revisit itself for that Saudi Arabia show in a couple of weeks as well. They don't go head to head, but nonetheless, are we talking about enough fans that have watched a 3.5 hour WWE show? Are they in the mindset to consume 2 more hours?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with this being such a regular thing, you have to wonder if there are any sort of discussions about permanently moving Collision to a different time.
It remains to be seen. I mean, they've honestly held up very well against college football, which is a feather in their cap, but like the WWE shows, it's very notable.
It's going to be more than once a month, between WWE PLEs, and now we know NXT PLEs can also take a huge dent from them as well.
All right, Raw ratings for Monday night saw Raw up to 1,511,000 viewers, a 0.48. This was their best performance so far this season against Monday Night Football. I guess it somewhat helped. There was a blowout in the game, so they were up 3% in viewers, 12.5% in the demo, and up 33% in the adult 18 to 34 demo. And NXT from Tuesday, Becky Lynch is 3 for 3 on TV, and you can make it 4 for 4 if you want to include this this No Mercy performance. But with Becky off last week, the numbers went back to normal. So this week, with her promoted around her appearance, audience was up 35% to 857,000 viewers. Their most viewers since October 28th of 2020 for a Halloween Havoc special. So we're talking almost 3 years. The demo was up 23% to a 0.22. That was only a 2-week high from one of the other Becky shows. But if there is one trend here, Becky brings a ton of female viewership with her. I mean, just gigantic gains across the board among women this week compared to last week. So that is sort of the swing audience that Becky has made a difference for, but certainly proving to be very effective. I would shoehorn her onto that show next Tuesday. I think that she is a guaranteed difference maker, and I'm certain that Cena and Cody will be as well. But this woman is ingrained in your stories, and if she can be on the show, I would make room for her for at least a portion of the show next week. It feels like one of those all hands on deck shows.
If she's healthy, I imagine she will have a strong presence on the show, perhaps wrestling. She'll probably bring her husband with her, and then you can have pretty much the entire Raw roster show up.
Maybe Rue will make her NXT debut.
At this point, sure. Why not?
Okay, so that's all the ratings notes. Walker Stewart has confirmed the report that was first made by Super J-Cast that he will be becoming the new English voice of New Japan Pro Wrestling. His first show will be the Fighting Spirit Unleashed card later this month in Las Vegas on October 28th. He's going to be calling that show with Veda Scott. And then he later that week will be doing a Road to Power Struggle card with Chris Charlton, as well as Power Struggle itself on November 4th. From that show's in Osaka. And Kevin Kelly will be doing the Destruction card that's coming up this Monday, and he's doing Wrestle Kingdom and New Year Dash in January. But Walker Stewart, he's been doing commentary for a while. He did like Booker T's Reality of Wrestling. He's done a lot of Texas Independence. He's done work with Future Stars of Wrestling out of Vegas. Is only 21 years of age, but it was Kevin Kelly and Brutal Bob Evans that kind of have been his mentors and kind of, put in the recommendation for him. So he will be starting off later this month. So you'll get a sample of him. You can already listen to some of his stuff online if you're not familiar with him. On the New Japan front, Lio Rush, he missed Wednesday's show and will be off Thursday. This was due to a fever of 105 degrees, which is no joke when you're talking a fever of that level. He's still advertised for the Sumo Hall card on Monday, where he's got a triple threat with Hiromu Takahashi and Speedball Mike Bailey. So at least if he can make Sumo Hall, it's a relatively, by the numbers match that you can come back and just kind of ease yourself into with a triple threat. Not too many high expectations for that one. With those guys and their style, I don't know about that. 105 degree fever, like that's. I think I had like the highest I ever had was like 104, and dude, you're kind of losing it at 104. 105 is a little like concerning.
You can start baking at some of those temperatures.
It's not great. Last note. Will Ospreay, he's going to be taking on Josh Alexander October 22nd at the Impact television tapings, the day after Bound for Glory. That's happening at Cicero Stadium, and probably another one in the Will Ospreay collection for 2023. Really, he's really just picking his spots, isn't he? Like really toning it down now.
I think he's really, he's trying to make up for some lost time.
This is the guy that's like won the batting title, but he's still swinging for the fences every time out.
Yes, he's Max Verstappen trying to win the remainder of the races, even having already clinched it pretty much.
What a comparison.
Yes.
All right. All of your news can be found at postwrestling.com, and it's a busy world out there to consume all of your news, all of your podcasts, and it's also really tough to consume all of the professional wrestling out there. You need every advantage that you can find.
That is so true, John. And what better way to try to get your hands on the world of professional wrestling that is out there than with NordVPN. Yes, thank you to NordVPN for sponsoring this podcast. And special thanks to all of you who signed up with our code last weekend ahead of AEW Wrestle Dream. A reminder then you can enjoy discounted prices for AEW pay-per-views on Fight by directing your IP to a location like the UK or Australia. This is also how I watch AEW Dynamite and Collision commercial-free each week through my AEW Plus subscription on Fight, a service otherwise not available in my location. VPNs are also a must for anyone with concerns about online security. If you do any sort of downloading of content, or if you're worried about unwanted tracking from advertisers, ISPs, phishing sites, and hackers, a trusted VPN like Nord's helps mask your IP to protect your browsing. Nord has also introduced its new threat protection feature. So even if you download an infected file, threat protection kicks in and deletes it in the background before it makes a mess of your computer. Sign up at nordvpn.com/postwrestling, where you can get 4 months on top of all 2-year plans. They've also got a 30-day money-back guarantee, which comes out to about $3.08 a month when you sign up again at nordvpn.com/postwrestling. Check the link in the show description. Do yourself and us a favor. Sign up with our link, get yourself some bonus months, and let them know you found out about us. Found out about them through posts. I got to get that right.
Did NordVPN allow you to hear Christian's uncensored message for Adam Copeland at the end of the night? Because for me, watching on simple TSN, his message to his 40-year best friend was, "Go."
I got it all, John. I got everything uncensored. I heard Toni Storm talk about titty slapping Skye Blue. You get it
Actually,
all.
that did make it into the TSN broadcast. They didn't cut the break in time. They weren't on top of her throwing to the picture-in-picture.
Okay, well,
we did get that. Well, tonight, Dynamite was at the Stockton Arena in Stockton, California. WrestleTix, noting that since Adam Copeland's addition, they moved over 1,000 tickets and were up to, at last count, just over 3,800 tickets distributed. So not an overwhelming figure, but at least some movement with Adam Copeland. But I mean, it's not one of the attendance figures that you're going to be, too blown away by.
And let's remember, this is an arena that holds 12,000. So some of the sound on tonight's show I thought was maybe more noticeably hollow at points.
Yeah, sometimes you get like it's a small number, but these AEW shows, they sound so much louder. I wouldn't like there were some points they got really into things, but overall I wouldn't call this like a crazy sounding crowd, even in a low number. Adam Copeland already inserted into the opening of Dynamite, and our first scene of the night is we throw to the back, and Renee is with Jericho and Omega, and she congratulates them on 4 years of Dynamite and notes how they were on opposite sides on the very first show in 2019. And Jericho mentions debuting 33 years ago, just a few days ago, marking his anniversary. And Adam Copeland walks in and notes the overwhelming Canadian content. There was so much Canadian content here. If they had done this on Collision, they would have had to put it on TSN too.
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah, that's their ruling. And he says he plans to be here for a long time for the 8th anniversary of Dynamite. Wishes them luck. And then Omega walks up and says, "It's really nice to meet you. You had me on the edge of my seat on Sunday." And this felt like a line that Adam Copeland was like legitimately reacting to in the moment. And they shake hands, and Copeland mentions how I can't stand Don Callis either. And then Renee has a little byplay here with Jericho, admitting that she kind of likes Kenny a bit better than Jericho. This was like your cool, like, okay, all these different figures interacting. By the end of the show, I thought the scene was very unnecessary because it was a gaping hole for me during this attack by Powerhouse Hobbs, where they went out of their way to explain the Young Bucks are gone and Hangman Page isn't here. And all I'm thinking of is this guy that like was just like best buds with these guys like an hour and a half ago. And I could have withheld this segment till Collision to do it again. Cause it was on my head. The entire attack angle is, well, why wouldn't this guy come to this aid? It's not just meeting Omega and Jericho. He goes out of his way to say he hates Don Callis too.
So, I mean, I completely understand why they would want to put the biggest name of the week in the company on the first segment as the first thing that viewers, especially potentially new viewers would tune in to see. It makes all the sense in the world. To be quite honest, I didn't even think about the connection that you just mentioned, but it makes all the sense in the world as well, John, because we're trained in professional wrestling to be able to, associate friends with like, these sort of segments and in these sort of beatdowns, it almost felt like it was served up for you to expect an Adam Copeland save. And
You could have had this with anyone else. Like if it was with like the Hardys, for instance, or something, anybody else that maybe has some history with Adam Copeland, if you want that image, because to me, like they think this way, and that's why they explain the Bucks and Hangman not coming. And this was so fresh in my mind that was my only negative on this particular scene, because to me, it was just a hole in the attack angle later.
I mean, I think they wanted to associate clearly, Edge and Kenny Omega for a future match down the road, and probably even sooner than later, I would say. It's also maybe a bit more. You get a mix of everything here. You get a reunion between Edge and Chris Jericho, but you also get this sort of like dream on-screen pairing for the first time between Kenny Omega and Edge. So for those reasons, I understand, but I do think maybe it was a bit of an oversight that they would do that sort of angle with Kenny and not have any mention of where Edge is.
The first match is Rey Fenix and Nick Jackson for the AEW International Championship, a rematch from November of 2019. And we have Matt Jackson, Penta, and Alex Abrahantes in the respective corners. And they had, shocking, they had a really great match to open up Dynamite. Some highlights included Fenix missing a PK off the guardrail, and then Nick with a Rana onto the floor after a slingshot over the rail. Nick tries for a kick on the apron. He misses, so he kicks the post, and this would affect his foot for the rest of the match that Fenix would go after. They traded super kicks, did a double kip up, and then both go down. The crowd is clapping for them. And then Nick does a backflip to the floor, holds his ankle from the earlier spot, and eats a cutter from Fenix. Then there's a head kick by Nick using the injured foot, then each springboard to the top, and Nick executes this avalanche cutter for a 2 count. And then it was into these big near falls, including Nick doing a poison Rana. Then he bounces off the top rope and rebounds into a Canadian destroyer. There's a solo BTE trigger, and then Fenix catches the leg, super kicks the injured foot, and hits a frog splash for a big near fall. Goes to the Phoenix driver. There's a roll up by Nick and a reversal by Fenix, catching Nick in 13 minutes and 43 seconds, retaining the International Championship.
I thought it was a very good match. Crowd, I thought, was pretty lively for this one. They recognized that they were seeing a pretty significant rivalry in the history of AEW. And I thought that this particular match, and maybe this, international run going forward for Fenix, is going to offer a really unique opportunity for him to showcase his well-roundedness as a wrestler, because it's relying on him selling a whole lot more, selling body parts in particular. The way maybe even the back injury really helped Nick Jackson improve his reputation as somebody who, was a bit more complete than simply a high flyer. So in this match, I thought you had both Nick and Fenix be able to work a lot more of a body part focused style, Rey with his back and Nick Jackson here with his leg. And I thought this was unique, a unique addition to sort of like the collection of matches that these two have had, because it didn't just rely on their speed and acrobatics. You had a bit of that too towards the end, but I thought it had a bit more depth than some of those other matches.
I thought it was a nice collection of like just a build on the last match, and yeah, we're working in the injured foot with the bad back. Yeah, I really enjoyed this. This was my favorite match on the show tonight.
In particular, like even at the end of the match, I mean, Fenix was spending a lot of time laying down, and even like having to like basically collapse right after his hand was raised by the referee. And I'm really hoping that this was just like great selling by Fenix. Because the announcers pointed it out so much, I'm willing to think that it was, but it tells you that like if it is, it's really good selling from him.
This is the title that, I mean, you're just thrown into the deep end. So he's got Moxley next week. Like it's just the title that you just work hurt through. Then they recap the Roderick Strong Adam Cole segment with MJF from last week, and we go to a pre-taped segment where Adam Cole is outside of Roderick Strong's house with the Kingdom. So this was listed as earlier today. Okay.
Right.
Now that the pay-per-view is gone and Dynamite is over, why did the Kingdom have their luggage at Collision and have to race to catch the red eye Saturday night?
Okay. Well, clearly they showed up before Adam Cole did. They spent the entire weekend with Roderick Strong. Cole just made it today.
They had to be there that Saturday night for that.
Well, Roderick Strong is a man of great need. Look at him. He's in a wheelchair. He's got a neck collar. Okay. He's a very demanding friend. I don't know if you've noticed.
Okay, so this segment featured Roderick Strong getting a gift for Adam Cole. He got him a scooter for his broken ankle, and
Hilarious.
they go around the house playing on their wheelchair and scooter. And Cole keeps saying, I've got to go for my ankle surgery. But Roderick says, I need you to move some furniture. And Cole, since he's his best friend, does it. He's like moving a couch. He's like lifting all this stuff.
With the broken ankle.
Yes. And then he says, I've got to leave. But it ends with Strong saying that he still needs his help. And Adam Cole, proving that he's a good friend, is going to stick around. I didn't find this funny at all. I thought this was awful. I'm sorry, Wai. I think we might have disagreed on this.
What's wrong with you? Where's your soul?
I have none.
This was great. I love this. Okay, well, first,
what did you love about this?
So tell me, did you like the MJF and Cole segments more than this?
Yes, I did. I found them like there was an entertainment to them, like not my favorite things, but I saw the entertainment.
What did you find entertaining about
I'm
those?
watching this with a comedic lens, and I was not entertained by any of this.
Oh, come on. I think if you like those, this was much the same way. In fact, like I kind of like these a little bit more than the MJF ones. And for me, like the Cole MJF ones have been really good, but I think Strong and Kingdom as characters are a lot more, they're almost 100% comedic in nature, and tonally they fit these videos and this style that MJF and Cole have set up really perfectly. And I would say maybe I would even say like some expectations of what a world champion is with MJF aren't necessarily like the burden that they would be, in a video like this. Beyond that, John, I just think it's a brilliant pivot, for Cole through this injury. By still having him appear on TV, he's got basically a gimmick now where he could do these sort of backstage out of arena types of skits. And still be entertaining and still be able to convey a pretty good amount of story. It's super helpful for Roderick Strong and the Kingdom to continue to flesh out their comedic characters.
We're not arguing. I'm not anti-skit. I am not anti-entertainment. I just didn't find any of this entertaining or funny. The premise of it is fine. Yes, this guy's injured. Find a role for him. I just did not find it. Like,
you don't think it's funny to see Adam Cole and Roderick Strong race on their scooters and wheelchairs?
No, I just thought it was like.
You don't think it's funny to see a one-legged Adam Cole move furniture for Roderick Strong?
There were no parts I found just funny. Like I just didn't think it was like whether this was improvised or written. It was like I just didn't get any entertainment value out of it. So that's just this is my personal taste. If this segment tomorrow it's like the rage of the show, listen, I will absolutely understand that there's
I will concede that comedy is very subjective, and what might work for you is not going to work for somebody else. What worked for me clearly isn't going to work for somebody else either.
You know what I was thinking after this? Maybe I need to watch it again. Maybe I needed to watch it with another fresh.
You probably didn't hear it with the right sound.
Yeah, this is like the is this thing on? I said. So before that, Griff Garrison and Wardlow. Griff Garrison is out, and we get the surprise return of Wardlow, who mauls this guy 5 power bombs and pins him in a minute 2. Hops the guardrail and leaves through the crowd, and that was our return of Wardlow, who has been gone since June. They noted.
He usually, I think he at least likes to stick around to get his arm raised and maybe like soak up some of that adulation. But tonight he just like did the power bombs and left right away. And I think it's great. It's the way that Wardlow has been pushed up until this point is mainly through his physicality.
What happened to Arn?
Well,
did he drop him?
I guess.
Isn't that a loose end?
Well, you don't know. He might be, he might be polishing the gun collection, and then he might be showing up at some point. Arn Anderson should really join the gun club, shouldn't he? Anyway, Wardlow has had a lot of chances at this point, and I do feel like he's gained a bit of a reputation as a guy who should be more over than he actually is right now. So, I almost wonder if this might be setting up a heel turn just to give you a bit of a different wrinkle to his solo singles run. But I'm hoping it's this time it connects in a way that the previous ones didn't.
Don Callis and Takeshita were interviewed by Renee, and we learned that Sammy Guevara has not been medically cleared tonight, and therefore, on the recommendation of Will Ospreay, Kyle Fletcher will step in to team with Takeshita against Kenny Omega and Chris Jericho, with Callis stating, "No one remembers who win the battles. They remember who wins the war, and he will win the war no matter what." And then in a very bizarre moment, they note that due to some transmission issues, you might not have heard the audio for the Roderick Strong Adam Cole segment, and they replayed the thing. So they obviously they were very proud of this thing, and they did not want to leave it to chance that anyone missed out on this segment. So we got a replay of this segment like 10 minutes after it aired.
Oh, as they should be. This was a masterpiece.
They should have ended the show with this for a third time, just in case, with the overrun.
Definitely. I mean, essentially, like this felt like what it was like a minute or something. I mean, they basically
it wasn't
basically replaced the Butcher and the Blade and Kip Sabian's entrance.
The Acclaimed and Daddy Ass defended the trios belts against Butcher, Blade, and Kip Sabian. Max did a rap about Butcher and Blade rubbing each other's knobs and Kip's best look being a box on his head. They clear the ring, the champion scissor. Sabian does a moonsault to the floor onto the Acclaimed, and then the tag to Bowens is made after the picture-in-picture, and Acclaimed hit their double-team finisher. It's like a magic killer setup into a power slam by Max Caster, and they win in 5 minutes and 16 seconds, pinning Kip Sabian.
It was honestly a little bit hard to pay attention to this because the finish came right as Excalibur was running down next week's edition of Dynamite.
In his Excalibur delivery hard sell voice as well. So yeah, it was very distracting. I actually had to rewind the ending because I was just listening to him for the last minute as he just pumped up this title Tuesday.
Beyond that, I mean, it's not really a defense of any sort of like significant note. And I don't know how, like the Acclaimed are kind of like, they're not a team known for their great in-ring action, although they've had great matches, but for the most part, they're just like, you know, almost like, hey, here's the party, like type of group. And I don't know if I was really missing a whole lot either by not paying such close attention to the match.
We got the season finale of Portrait of a Star with RJ City and Toni Storm. And he insults her by noting her ring experience, that she's been wrestling for 14 years. And she is asking herself, does she have it, or was she just lucky? And then RJ tells her the words she's been waiting to hear. You're not even old. And thus she realizes she is timeless. Timeless Toni Storm, who will premiere later tonight. And this is the evolution of the character. This is timeless Toni Storm.
I love it. First of all, magnificent performance from Toni Storm here. I think being able to finally put a nickname or a label to this character almost feels like this week was sort of the completion of the transformation of timeless Toni Storm. It feels very, it feels very much like, you know, her version of the it's the new broken Matt Hardy, isn't it? You know, somebody driven to madness, and now you have a catchy nickname attached to it. I love the smeared makeup look, you know, reminds me, as I'm sure it did a lot of people, including Chelsea Green, of Hot Mess Laurel Van Ness. You know this because she retweeted a photo of her Hot Mess character today. But these vignettes have been great to flesh out the character, and I'd love to see them continue these sort of like, you know, backstage post-production type of elements, especially with a character like this.
These vignettes are, to me, much more effective than just putting Toni Storm in a match every other week. I mean, these are very good. RJ is a natural for this kind of role, and yeah, I'd
love to see Dustin Runnels get involved and reprise maybe just a slightly similar version to the old character that he used to play.
Okay, well, it's been a while
Silver
since
Dust.
we've seen Dustin. Could
Black Rain, I'm talking about.
Oh, Jesus, I don't know. I think that's still a sensitive character with him. We had the post-match comments from Bryan Danielson and Zack Sabre Jr. And Bryan screams that Zack doesn't have the heart or the soul to compete with him. If you didn't see Zack's post-match interview, it's amazing. It was so good. Your brittle bones were in my hands. I very much, my New Year's resolution is to learn Zack better. Okay, it's a great promo. Okay,
that's a bit more of like a New Yorker trying to be a
well, he used to live in New York, so maybe he could hook that up. Close enough. Meet me halfway. But this is great, and the fact that this made it onto television, it does suggest that the rematch is probably something that they are going to go towards. Like, you did have Zack issue the challenge for either Japan or England, and it would seem like the fact that they are keeping this moving as something that they might go to. And they don't need much of a build for the rematch, much like they didn't need a whole build for the first match. You could just announce this and people will be into it.
Well, what's kind of odd is that, like, he mentioned UK or Japan. These are two territories that AEW does not run. So you would assume that it would take place on a New Japan show.
Maybe a power struggle, something like that.
Yeah. And would you actually get some promotion out of it from AEW?
Well, that's that's the question. And we'll see what, like, there was no mention tonight about this big angle, or when did the Jericho angle happen? I think that was before last week's show. Anyway, we haven't heard.
No mention. Yeah.
There's been no mention. That's the point. So, I mean, we will see if any of their big players going over to Japan gets any notoriety. Then Hangman Page had his comments after the Swerve Strickland loss and needs to rehab his arm, go back to the drawing board, and mentions him using Prince Nana's crown, and will be on the show next week. And then they recapped MJF and Jay White from last week. I will say, this is not just a like an odd occurrence now. Like there is a lot of non-wrestling content that is filtered, especially into Dynamite. And that's become consistent, I think.
Yeah, and I don't complain about that. Like, I'm somebody who I think has wanted that a whole lot more. I don't think it's come at the expense of in-ring quality on the show, and I think it's served to, keep a lot more plate spinning, so to speak, especially now that you have so many more programs to build ahead of these what feels like monthly pay-per-views.
So they discussed the MJF Jay White attack, and the Guns come out, the Gun Club, with Juice Robinson, Colton, and Austin, calling MJF the people's douchebag, and state, after all that time talking last week, the best you could come up with was tofu. And you attack Jay White because you're scared. Juice calls him out, says, "You're not a man." So MJF arrives, and he refers to Juice as talentless taint, and gets the crowd to start chanting, "Ass boys, talentless taint." So this was pushing things. They knew that "You are an asshole" would get censored on Fox. So would TNT or TBS censor talentless taint?
I don't know. Did they?
No, they did not. This was fair.
Taint is allowed.
Taint allowed. Ass allowed.
T-ain't-T.
Yes, exactly. That's the rebranding that Zaslav's been looking for. He lists off all the awful things he's done, including whipping Cody with a belt, giving children injuries during a dodgeball game, and almost getting them kicked off TV when he called Tony Khan an effing mark. He says he did not attack Jay White or Tofu, and proposes a Stockton street fight, and boom, did this crowd come alive. Wait a minute, that's where we are. And he enters the ring, they exit, and then Jay White returns, appears from behind, and lays him out with the Blade Runner, takes the belt and steals it, and then does a lengthy promo calling MJF a coward and issues a challenge for Full Gear a mere 6.5 weeks from now.
Oh, goodness. Really? Wow.
November 18th, to prove he is an elite champion, but you will fail, and I'm going to keep this title. And MJF gets the microphone, and he says, "What's my answer?" And I thought for sure he was going to turn it down and make it next Tuesday. But no, he accepted the challenge for Full Gear. And my conclusion, that's a long time. That's a long time. I think they'll have an excellent match, but that's a really long build for this match.
6.5 weeks. I mean, by today's standard, feels like it's quite a while, right? So, I mean, listen, like we usually like 6.5 weeks out. I feel like AEW knows their destinations for these pay-per-views anyway. They just don't necessarily announce it. But despite that, in the background, they are building contenders. Now we just all know it, but they still have to continue to build Jay White. I personally wouldn't have minded if they delayed this at least a week or two for sure. For not because of that reason, but because I think Jay needed to sell that attack for at least another week. I mean, something that only lays him out for 4 days. I don't think ultimately
there's no drama or mystery anymore to who the attacker was. Like, there was no consequence. So how can you, the fan, be concerned about who this assailant was when the victim is fine? The victim is now in a great position to challenge for the title. Like, I think they took the drama away of this reveal of whoever this attacker is.
Like, I mean, imagine who shot Mr. Burns, and Mr. Burns just comes back a week later.
I'm good.
Yeah, I mean, you
or like if Austin had just not gone out from the car. Like, it's nice that you did that for The Rock and for the people, Rikishi, but he's good.
And I know this wasn't like some major attack, like he didn't get run over by a car. Sure, okay, but still, I think it
was the cliffhanger last week.
Exactly, just to make the mystery feel like that much more of a significant event. I think,
or don't waste an angle like that.
Yeah, Jay White didn't.
You can only do the mystery who done it so often, and I would make that like a big like, look when NXT would do that with like the parking lot and how elaborate they used to make some of those, like with all the suspects, all their motivations, and it would build up for several weeks before you get the answer. And that to me, it's like that kind of mystery can be a great couple week angle.
Yeah. So the mystery certainly is still there because yes, we like the audience knows it's not MJF, but I think you could have had a lot more fun with it. I think you could have had the Bullet Club Gold play like, you know, detectives for weeks on end without Jay White being there, just to be able to finally point the finger at MJF using evidence that they feel is, you know, justifiable. Instead, I think we rushed through a whole lot here. But you know, they chose to do this for whatever reason.
Renee spoke with Orange Cassidy and Hook, and Orange Cassidy just mentions they could have been great tag team champions. They came so close. Hook is still a great champion because he has a title. And Hook just says, you know, you could be a great champion too. It should be you facing Fenix next week, not Moxley. And man, how awkward for Renee here in the middle to hear this. And Cassidy says, well, I mean, Moxley had the title for 3 weeks. I mean, I only had it for 11 months, but whatever. So this is like Orange Cassidy starting to get a little jaded from the title rankings and the matchmaking in AEW.
Yeah, I guess this is him trying to show that he's kind of upset, but also thinking that he needs to stick to the gimmick and not necessarily care about it. So I hope it means, like, you know, sort of like in the weeks to come, he'll start to increasingly get more and more like visibly pissed off to the point where he just starts like cutting these incredibly fiery promos. Because at this point, like, we've seen Orange Cassidy like basically do what he does in ring, and we know how capable he is. I think he needs to find that same level of evolution on the microphone as he has, you know, in ring. Where in ring, it's not uncommon at all in every match to see Orange Cassidy not be lazy and fire up. I kind of want to see him do the same now as a promo, because we started to see that towards the end of the international title run, and I think he needs to make it a regular part of his routine. Not go, you know, not talk like a normal person every single time, but when the scenario calls for it, you know, to be able to build up to show that you have that extra register will only expand his tool set for, you know, bigger stories.
No, he's building up for like a breakdown. Like he's just going to lose it. He's going to snap.
I hope so.
Jericho and Kenny Omega against Konosuke Takeshita and Kyle Fletcher. I thought Fletcher was great in this match. It's like your fill-in. Was not surprised here. I was only disappointed by the angle afterwards that it looks like he's going to be not attached to the Don Callis family and is sort of like off to his own. While they did not outright state on the broadcast that Mark Davis what the injury was, but I think everyone is assuming he did break the wrist, and that's going to be, you know, not going to be a week-to-week injury. It'll be some time until he's back. So Fletcher and Jericho fight throughout the picture-in-picture. Omega's in, does the you can't escape into a backstabber onto Fletcher. Then the heels come back with a combination Blue Thunder Bombs and a Michinoku driver. Jericho hit the Frankensteiner to Fletcher, and then it's everyone getting laid out with strikes, including a brainbuster to Omega. We go through a second commercial, and after Omega's in, he is hit with a powerbomb, or hits a powerbomb and knee strike to Fletcher, the knee strike and Snapdragon onto Takeshita, and then we get the finishing sequence of a code breaker onto Fletcher that sends him into Kenny's arms for the one-winged angel in 15 minutes, 16 seconds. Audience got very into the closing sequence, and then he is pinned. Callis yells. He goes from praising Kyle Fletcher for how great he's looked in this match. The pinfall is made. He screwed me. He screwed me. And he's pissed, and he's just ready to throw Kyle Fletcher to the wolves. And with that, Powerhouse Hobbs runs in and he attacks Kenny Omega and Chris Jericho as Don Callis smiles. And then I think I timed this at about 18 minutes that Powerhouse Hobbs proceeded to beat these two men down. He just beat these two forever. He took Kenny into the crowd, put his head through this guardrail. They taped up Kenny with duct tape to the top rope. And then instead of Hobbs using the chair, Don takes the chair and delivers a chair shot right on top of the head of Kenny. And the heat here is that Excalibur mentions that, you know, I thought that was a part of pro wrestling that was behind us. So it's like in pro wrestling, there's lines to your beatdown angles. We don't do unprotected chair shots, and Don Callis broke the code.
Screwdrivers, I mean, fair game, you know, but I mean, chairs to the head is past the border of, I think, what's acceptable. You know, they did the Cody's Sean Spears thing, you know, chair shot to the head for heat.
This had a better outcome than that one did.
It certainly did, yeah. And I have to believe that they, again, so this Cody Sean Spears, for people who don't remember, was an incident where they evidently
gimmicked up the chair, but okay,
so they gimmicked the seat of the chair, but I guess Spears caught him with the frame of the chair, the rest of the chair, and that busted up Cody bad, and then made AEW look terrible and highly irresponsible. I have to believe that this time around they successfully would have gimmicked the chair, because I don't think you know, Excalibur wouldn't have said that line. Regardless, but I don't know. What do you think? Do you think like it's fair game to tease CTE when it's gimmicked, or does it turn people off?
I don't think it's either, to be quite honest. I think at times I lean to these as almost like overthinking things, that you're playing to such a small subset of fans that would look at this in that kind of context. Like Don Callis is contributing to this guy's future CTE with this. I think you see enough of, you know, there are companies that do your unprotected chair shots, and I don't think they gain a whole lot of heat. It's more so it's a turnoff for some and indifferent to most. And that's this. I think it's just it's an attack. I don't know if it really carries much weight with the audience.
I mean, I think it's novel in AEW. Other than that Sean Spears Cody moment, I don't know if you've really seen it, and the fact that they, you know, it's like seeing a pile driver in the WWE. Like there's like sort of like an added level of maybe realism attached to it that makes you pay attention. I think they needed something big enough like this, you know, for an attack of this sort. But I also, you know, I can also see people being turned off.
Do you think they're going to work like a concussion story?
What would that entail, I guess, for Kenny Omega? Because like we've seen guys with concussions. What would it entail for?
I don't know. It's not something they like to. And it's kind of tough when you like are literally have this example of John Moxley, who is nursing a legitimate concussion, although he is advertised for next week, so he's back. But I wouldn't have said that if not for like the fact that Excalibur was making such a big deal out of like this spot, and like that's not something that happens in pro wrestling anymore. These chair shots to the head.
I think they needed something to write Kenny off for next week. He's not advertised for a match, maybe even beyond that, you know. But they just need something to have
those Jay White recuperative abilities.
That's it, yeah. But they also needed something big for Hobbs, you know, making his debut here for the Callis family. Do you like that addition?
I do. I think Kenny Omega and Hobbs is a really interesting match to do, and like the story that like, can he lift this guy up? Probably not. He has to find a different way to beat Powerhouse Hobbs, and like Hobbs is, you know, he has flirted with graduating to that next level. And it seems like he's one of many guys that they have that tease, and then it kind of just, they get put onto the back burner. This seems like something a bit more substantial. And I'm very happy to see him in this story and away from QTV. I think he had outgrown that. And this is a more prominent position for him with a mouthpiece like Don Callis. So I like the pairing on paper a lot. And we'll get to see next week with Jericho. Like that's a pretty big match for Hobbs.
Yeah, it's really big. I mean, it seems like they're making a big effort with him. I expect him to beat Jericho next week, and the match with Kenny, I think, will be a big one. So again, like Hobbs is a guy who's kind of jumped from faction to faction, and you know, some of it not really sticking, especially lately. So I hope this one is a bit better for him.
Renee was in the trainer's room with MJF, and the Acclaimed show up in the background, and Max takes over massaging MJF, who freaks out, calling him a stalker, and threatens to get a restraining order, calling out his tweets that he sends him. And MJF is so pissed off, he goes to call Adam Cole, stating, "I can't do this on my own anymore," and it goes to voicemail. So I think the end result here is that these guys are going to become MJF's allies. That's what I think, to offset Bullet Club Gold.
Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, they're making this MJF caster sort of very you know, interesting Twitter relationship a thing on screen, and as a substitute for Cole not being there, now having this sort of new like will they or won't they be best friends type of relationship between Max and Max is, sure, it could be very interesting.
Sky Blue and Toni Storm, featuring Toni Storm's great entrance.
But before that, We gotta talk.
Yeah. I'm
We
sorry.
gotta
Sorry.
talk about one of the best things on this show.
Oh, Samoa Joe. I mean, this man, he does a vignette where he's got like a bourbon and a cigar. Look at this
Amazing.
guy.
Wow.
He knows what it's like to be hungry and when to be satisfied. I've been a champion everywhere I've gone, and I need to be focused and regain that hunger. I should be AEW World Champion, but MJF did earn my respect, and they're all going to realize that when I'm hungry, I always manage to eat. This is a great spot. I mean, this guy is just
tailor-made for holding. I mean, I never thought about Samoa Joe in this fashion. You know, we've I guess always seen him as this sort of like monster, but I mean, he's become a very cerebral monster, and this exactly reminds you of the Kingpin from Daredevil, doesn't it? You know, somebody who can beat the shit out of somebody, but also mastermind a plan to, you know, fuck you over mentally if he wanted to. This is like the perfect imagery. I'm so glad that they're using their resources to, like, you know, create interesting video for even an established guy like a Samoa Joe. And it seems like they're teasing a rematch with Max.
Yeah, it seems like it's another that he is going to work his way back towards the title, which, I mean, it was just such a definitive win for MJF, but that match did very well for them. It moved tickets. It did very well in the numbers. And I think that it's one where you can revisit. And I like the idea. I've said this before, of you're always building up contenders. It doesn't mean that you're immediately going to MJF and Joe, but everyone's got their eye on the belt, and maybe it's a month from now, maybe it's 4 months from now, but everyone's working towards that belt, and it is everyone's target that you have. And then it's not like you're just tapping a guy on the shoulder cold to build up for MJF. It's like you've established like your contenders, for lack of a better term, that are all in the hunt for the next title match. Toni Storm and Skye Blue, as I mentioned, great entrance here from Toni Storm with the black and white filter. Excalibur stating she is unwell, and she goes to shake Blue's hand, but then attacks her with a short arm clothesline, hits her with the hip attack, and then, while seated on the apron, says, "We'll be back right after these very important sponsors," as she throws to nordvpn.com/wrestling.
So great. I love this gimmick. You know, I mean, it works so well, I think. I mean, did they have commercials back then? Did they whatever era of
course,
show?
like that was like how they came up with the term soap opera. It was like they would be like, you know, selling soap.
Well, perfect, isn't it? I love all these sort of additions she's added to this gimmick beyond just, you know, the look and everything.
And then she goes to the floor, and before we can go to the very important sponsors, she calls for a titty slap.
Her words, not ours. Sorry.
Her words, yes. We come back. Blue makes a comeback, but then eats a tree slam, and then there's the hip attack and Storm Zero. Toni Storm wins.
My God, before the hip attack, she now calls for a close-up in the corner as the camera zooms in, Okada style. And then she delivers the hip attack, which may or may not be called the close-up from this point on. It's wonderful. It's exactly what that finisher needed, or a setup for the finisher, I should say.
I loved her celebration after the match as well. Like she had just won the Academy Award.
Yes.
She's excellent in this role, and she has completely crafted this story that never needs the championship. Like, it's obviously, like, if she has this moment, it's something you could go to, but it's hardly needs to be her destination. Like, she has almost like created this whole world for herself, and I hope they can just keep it fresh. It's super hot at the moment, and it's just, you know, continuing to advance it forward. And like, this is a very talented performer that I feel that there will be lots of additions to this character to keep it moving.
AEW can build challengers, you know, like anytime they want. They build a new one every single month, seemingly. They don't have as much luck building successful characters that crowds organically have been drawn to. And this is like definitely one of them, men or women. You know, they put so much great work into this character, and tonight again felt like a real genuine debut, completing the transformation. You have the nickname now, you have the smeared makeup look, things like, you know, throwing to commercial and the close up in the finisher, like just really great additions to this character that make it feel like its own complete unique thing.
Do you see RJ being part of the package at all?
I would hope so. I think it would be a wonderful role for him. Like, I think RJ is very good in his role, but I personally like see his final landing spot as something in the wrestling world, you know, like as a character. But you know, he could do a lot. He could do a whole lot for Tony.
Rampage on Friday has Menard, Angelo Parker, Jake Hager, and Daniel Garcia against the Hardys and the Best Friends, Chris Statlander and Hikaru Shida against Nyla Rose and Marina Shafir, and a four-way to determine the next ROH title challenger with Penta, Lindsay Dorado, Commander, and Johnny TV. And Stokely has stated that Eddie Kingston will be on commentary. They need a champion that smells like Tom Ford, not Burger King and Newports. So Stokely is trying to unseat Eddie Kingston as the unfit ROH champion. Collision at 7 p.m. They've only announced FTR against Big Bill and Ricky Starks for the tag titles and Kiera Hogan against Toni Storm for Saturday. And then next week, Adam Copeland, Luchasaurus, Bryan Danielson, and Swerve with the winner receiving a TNT title shot. Saraya against Shida for the women's title, Phoenix and Moxley for the international title, Powerhouse Hobbs against Jericho, and Jay White against Hangman Page. So a very loaded show next week at the world-renowned Cable Dahmer Arena in Independence, Missouri.
Okay, Cable Dahmer?
Yes.
Is that a company?
Jeffrey Dahmer.
Cable Dahmer?
Yeah.
What does that mean? Is that a
I
brand?
You can
Cable Dahmer Automotive.
Okay.
New and used car dealerships.
Okay. Shivani's in the ring and brings out Adam Copeland, who states that you were the voice of my childhood. Now get out of the ring, as he laughs. And we get an Adam chant, which he notes he has never received before. Says, here he is. He was told he couldn't do this anymore in 2011, and now I'm in an AEW ring in 2023. And boy, would that AEW title look good around my waist. And mentions all the different first-time matches he could have, mentioning John Moxley, Kenny Omega, Miro, Hobbs, Jay White, Juice Robinson. And he spoke to his daughters about what he should do. He asked them, should I retire? And his 9-year-old Lyric told him to go have fun with Uncle Jay. And he explains to us, you call him Christian Cage. One of those, like, why do we call him Christian Cage?
I don't know.
Uncle Jay. Maybe that's the babyface turn eventually.
I like Uncle Jay a bit more even. Yes.
He calls out Christian, and Adam explains that they have been best friends for 40 years, and it's this industry that ensured that we'll be best friends forever. And he explains his actions that he did on Sunday, why he threw the chair at Luchasaurus and hit Nick Wayne in the back. He said he still loves Christian, even with the way he's acting. But I saw what you were going to do to Sting. Sting! And he explains that this was Christian's idol when he was a child. You took his picture to the barber shop and wanted your haircut done like Sting. I was Luger and you were Sting. What a combo in Orangeville. You imagine these two walking around the streets
with the rat tail and mullet. I could totally see it.
He can't stand by and watch him try to do that to Sting, who's a legend, who has done this for 4 decades, has been making people feel for 4 decades. And he knows that when Luchasaurus and Nick Wayne drain you for all your knowledge, they're going to drop you like a bad habit, and you won't even see it coming. So Adam says, it's time. It's time for the two of us to team together and face a team like FTR, like the Young Bucks, and prove that we are one of the greatest teams of all time. Let's end our careers together one more time. And Christian comes and gives him a hug and then puts the microphone up. Go fuck yourself. And this crowd is heartbroken. They are so sad that they are not going to get these two best friends going on one last run together. They chant asshole at him. Christian said 3 words in this segment, and he was amazing. He walks up the ramp and is joined by Luchasaurus and Nick Wayne in the most ugly of sweaters possible for this heel run. And they push the match for next Tuesday, Adam Copeland against Luchasaurus. I thought this segment was awesome. And to me, Christian was the star of it. I just thought he was so good. And man, the demeanor he held and just the line at the end. I mean, you've dangled something for the audience now that whenever they get to, like, at some point they come together to team, but that could be 2 years from now, health pending for both of these guys. But it was a nice, I think, long-term thing to dangle, but snatching it away from the fans and making them want it that much more when you're ready to do that, which could be a long way away.
You also needed a reason for the two to feud with each other, and telling a best friend to go fuck himself on national TV might be one of those things that'll do that. Christian is one of the best villains in professional wrestling today, and something like this segment, this association with Edge coming in, makes him that much hotter and immediately shoots him up to be, like this is now potentially the hottest program in the entire company. We're talking about Christian and Edge at this point, in their 50s. This was everything it needed to be at this stage of their careers. I think they're both like maybe the best promos that they've ever been. Christian with his character, but Adam Copeland as, his own kind of like very authentic real life self. That to me has always been the strength of his ability to talk. He sounds like a real person, and all his words, talking about his daughter and everything sounds incredibly believable, and it probably is very believable. I had wondered where he was going to go when he mentioned like, Lyric telling him to go play with Uncle Jay, because in a kayfabe context, what exactly would that mean, But he explained it perfectly. His daughter wants him to team up with Christian for a tag team one more time, and this man said, "Go fuck yourself." So I loved this. This was a great introduction for Adam Copeland.
Yes, it will be. It reminded me of that time that my child told me to go have fun with Uncle Wai, and then I suggested to Wai, and he told me the exact same 3 words.
Well, I do look pretty good in a turtleneck.
So what did you think of tonight's Dynamite? I felt it was my highlights. I really did enjoy like the last segment. I thought it laid a lot, set up a lot for that story, and did a big promo segment. I love the Phoenix Nick Jackson match. There was also stuff on this show that I actively did not like. Mainly something I got to see 2 times over. But what did you think overall? And also like the kind of the structure of the show. Now that we've had several episodes, and you can see like how this has. Like what Dynamite is sort of adjusting itself to be, which I do find in contrast to Collision.
Well, what exactly is that contrast? I'm curious to hear from you.
I think that there's a lot more focus on just like long talking segments in the ring, more promo features and videos, which I think are an enhancement. I think Joe doing that promo was way more effective than him coming out and winning in a minute.
Because that kind of started on Collision. And I think Collision still has a lot of video elements as well. Like I would say, overall, the product itself has more video pre-production elements.
Well, it does feel, and it's only 2 weeks, but it does feel like the max segment of him coming out and doing like a 15-minute talking segment is becoming more of a staple of Dynamite, which was not something in the past that you were getting that lengthy of a non-wrestling segment that, the show had largely, like it used to almost feel as though they were paranoid to go too long without wrestling. Like the wrestling content was extremely high, and I'm not arguing against like playing with the formula, but it is a notable change.
So you felt last week's MJF and Jay White segment might have gone a little bit too long, and I kind of felt that this week, and I think partially, again, it could be dependent on the viewer, but I also, for me tonight, was dependent on the crowd interaction. And I thought there were several times where MJF was looking for a call and response. And even though he might be getting them, because they sounded a little bit quieter through the camera, it felt a little bit awkward for me. So I would have said like you could have probably trimmed down that segment, on several ends when everybody was speaking just a little bit. But beyond that, I thought the show was really good. Like it had the Toni Storm re-debut, which I thought it was extremely successful. You had Hobbs, officially enter basically the Callis family. So like for storytelling elements and the Adam Cole Roderick Strong, which I was a fan of, but you weren't. And then Adam Copeland and Christian having their interaction in the main event. Cope, yes. So throughout all those things, I thought everything was like worthwhile on the show, and it had overall a feeling of just like great relevance. This show, it felt like there were no sort of like fat moments that you could trim.
In terms of let's link this to like the TNT title picture. So Christian is your champion. You're doing Danielson and Swerve next week. Would you like, first of all, do you see the destination being Adam Copeland and Christian for Full Gear? Would you assume that's the direction, or do you see maybe
that almost feels? Is it too soon? I don't know, because he's going to go through Luchasaurus. You would think he would go through Nick.
6.5 weeks, as I said, a very, very long time.
You could be right. Yeah. That could be the destination. I almost think, though, that's a bit too early to extinguish the feud. But then, you know what? It probably wouldn't even be an extinction.
You could do some kind of tag where it's like a 6-man. Maybe it's like time to do FTR and Adam Copeland against Chris. Like, I think at this point, you do have to do the Copeland Christian match at some point. I think you could drag that out.
I think you could drag that out like past to the next cycle, because I think there is enough storytelling there. But the trios match between Christian, Luchasaurus, and Nick Wayne against Rated FTR, I think is a perfect destination. Now, is it attractive enough for a pay-per-view? Especially now that we've already seen, like, we'll be seeing Edge have Adam Cope have his first singles match next week. I don't know, but
I could certainly see him wrestling multiple times in this next 6-week period. Like
Well, at this rate, like, he intends to be a full-time wrestler. Maybe you do go to Christian, for Full Gear, and then you can still do subsequent rematches down the line. So,
do you see Danielson or Swerve getting this TNT title?
I think that's a really interesting one, John, because I mean, I would argue that both men can't really afford losses right now. They've given Bryan so much, so like wins over Ricky Starks. He beat Zack Sabre Jr. Not that that outcome was really in so much jeopardy, but at the same time,
both have much more of a stronger claim for the AEW title than Jay White has accumulated. But they're fighting for the TNT belt.
Yeah,
I thought for sure they were setting up Swerve because that was a major win. And like Danielson and Swerve were like your two key guys coming out in terms of winning, I would argue, top 2 matches on the show.
Yeah. I personally think a win over Bryan would take Swerve over to that next level, and I think he should be the one, especially coming off the Hangman Page win. Otherwise, why have him beat Hangman? At the same time, they've given Bryan so many strong wins, and he's arguably, he is the bigger name. So MJF versus Bryan 2 would be that much of a bigger match, sure. But I would like to see Swerve get the spot, especially if they have another match already for Full Gear.
It's a lot of interesting directions that they have at their disposal, but we have one direction to go in, and that is towards you, the listener, with any super chats. And we have feedback from the forum with your thoughts on tonight's 4-year anniversary show of Dynamite.
Correct usage of anniversary.
They passed the test.
Yes.
Not that hard.
All right. We have some super chats. Thank you again to everybody watching us at youtube.com/postwrestling. Please do us a favor and subscribe. We're trying to hit 15,000 subs. Big
Please
round number.
Everyone stop right now. Hit subscribe if not already. It's one click, costs you nothing. Do it. And wake up a happy man.
You can choose to never visit us again. You could just do nothing. But as long as you help feed our egos with a nice round number, that's all we ask. Thank you. Let's go to Brandon from New Jersey, who says, probably a dumb question, but to pause it.
Let's just stop there.
Does New Japan Pro Wrestling commentator Walker Stewart look like post-worker John Cena? Good question.
You'd have to pull up a photo of
yeah.
I would need maybe a side-by-side. And
I mean, if you're thinking about John Cena, there's nobody that comes to mind more than DJ Khaled, but I could see the resemblance. Can you?
I can. Yeah. That's not a dumb observation, Brandon.
Cena would have to grow the nice hair.
It does feel like a Cena incognito.
Interesting. Yes.
Is John Cena secretly calling New Japan? Is that what Brandon is alluding to?
He's a very busy man, so if there's somebody who could fit it on his plate, I imagine it would be Cena.
No mention of Demetrius Johnson tonight on Dynamite. He lost to Kenny Omega in the Street Fighter 6 showdown.
Well, maybe if he won.
That's no joke. I mean, Demetrius Johnson was like a serious gamer, and Kenny Omega's obviously he was up for the challenge.
Is he a Street Fighter gamer though? Because isn't that Kenny's specialty?
I don't know. Maybe. Yeah, maybe at the edge.
All right, Jake from the Windy City says, I'm tired of seeing the Canadian Destroyer becoming another move. It used to be such a special thing to see, but now every show has it more than once.
I mean, it's a move that's over. It gets a reaction. I don't know. I never looked at it as like this ultra protected move. That's just it's part of the play, and that's where it is.
It is sort of like the indie-rific type of move, right? That, and I would say at this point the Poison Rana they're surefire hits, to elicit big reactions. And for one thing, I think I'm not going to say it's easy to do, but there are a lot of very capable people who could pull it off. Receivers more so than people actually doing it. And it just gets a great reaction. So,
and it's also anytime you talk about that, you want to get a move over, let a guy win with a move for 3 weeks in a row, it'll be over.
Double clothesline.
Dude, Konosuke Takeshita just pinned Kenny Omega from a knee strike. A knee strike.
Dude, double clothesline, body slam, kangaroo kick. Look at it. Any move can be a finisher if you treat it as such.
Honestly, MJF has tapped into kind of just your basic storytelling psychology. Give the audience something they want to see. Give the babyface a challenge to overcome. The crowd is happy. Tease them and give them what they want.
You should teach. You should put that on a shirt or something.
Okay.
Okay, let's go to forum.postwrestling.com.
Oh, you're first this time.
Oh, God. Jesse from Cincinnati. Seems the Edge AEW arrival may have passed its first test, but Edge's big test come Tuesday when the AEW and NXT thing happens. I still think why TK should have been the one buying WWE so AEW can have everyone in the wrestling world. But do you think we even see the day we see WWE and AEW on the same networks? That is TBS and TNT?
Got a question mark. That's a period.
PS, stop. See, look, he could clearly use quite the periods. He even added them inside PS. P.S. Okay? He just chooses not to. Anyway, he says, PS, stop the fan tribalism that Jade Cargill betrayed AEW and Edge betrayed WWE. It is the wrestling business.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm not going to spend time here like lecturing people on how to be fans, but it's like I apply this again, as I said at the beginning, when it gets into like nasty stuff that it's like you're just being reprehensible online. If it's just like, yes, you have bred these fans that are going to be very passionate about these things. That sounds so trivial of someone jumping back and forth. But it's like, I equate this to like, your favorite player is traded to your rival team. Yeah, that's part of the passion you get from a fan base. Now, when it gets into toxicity, yeah, you draw a line somewhere. But it's like, I'm also not going to get like so bent out of shape that, there is an emotional component of fans that are just just really over the top when it comes to these things.
I think it's great. It's a function of this system. It's a function of competition to root for your favorite team. Maybe an unwanted byproduct of that is, an insult of somebody's personal qualities or I don't know, insulting your mother for being a fan of AEW or something. I don't know.
Dude, I saw someone tweet something that Edge should be removed from the WWE Hall of Fame. I'm like, how can you be upset at this? Like, this is comical to be like, if that's the response, that's hurting nobody. It's prime fodder of just, that's a funny tweet. Okay.
Hilarious.
Yes. Edge should be out of the WWE Hall of Fame. Like,
yeah. Listen, I think it goes a lot further than that, especially if you're the person, like right? Yeah. Especially if you're the wrestler. Like, I think there's a clear reason why Edge felt the need to send what he sent out, addressing, first of all, a goodbye to his WWE family, but also to, I can only imagine what personal attacks the guy might be receiving, through his DMs, about this sort of thing. It's super weird. We're all just like, let's treat this like it's sports. I mean, I guess sports fans get it pretty bad too when it's the other city. They do. But anyway,
let's go to Robbie from London. Hadn't watched live in a few weeks, but what a great show to be back for. And what a final segment. Never was a big WWE guy, but Edge and Christian was an exception. And although I knew Christian would say no, part of me was just hoping to be surprised. Amazing work by all. But although I assume we will get to the team, do you guys think they will go through a feud first? Yes. Do we need to wait for a Christian face turn? Part of me would love to see it with Adam as a face and Cage still heel as a team. Great work as always. And loving the audio news updates. Thank you, Robbie. Yeah, as we've gone through, I think you go through the program, and I think down the line, long way down the line, you do the team. And I understand I'm stating like long way to line for a guy who's about to turn 50 in a few weeks, and Christian, who I don't think is too far behind that age as well.
But Christian just main evented a pay-per-view in a 2 out of 3 falls match.
And Christian is held up, like, to the best of our knowledge, is held up very well during this AEW run, unless there's been any like secret injuries. Edge, though, I mean, like he has had his serious injuries throughout his career, and not all that long ago when he had the tear against Randy Orton a few years ago. So I mean, but that's to be expected. Like for any of these guys, I would say, regardless of age, it's like you are going to run into that. It's a very high intense style, and the bodies are. Don't
be diving into crowds. Don't be diving off of ramps. We just maybe avoid some of those. But right now, like, Christian has found an incredibly hot heel character, and Edge coming into AEW is going to be a babyface. So why not ride those waves out at the same time and build this really hot program that could potentially occur between the two for now?
Do you see him introducing anything new next week, like move set wise? Do you just go with the hits? Because he strikes me as somebody that is looking for as much of a refresh as possible, but you also like your audience as well. It's like you know you don't want to be the if Wu-Tang on Sunday decide, hey guys, we have all these new songs we want to play tonight, and we're just going to scrap the old stuff. It's like you need the compromise, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Wrestling is a bit different, though. I mean, yes, like if The Rock comes back, I want to see him hit a people's elbow. I want to see a rock bottom, but
you could still do like the spear and stuff, but it's like win with like some other move, like.
And now he doesn't have to rely on terrible edge puns like the educator.
The greatest aspect of this signing is the end of education. No, edge-o-matic.
Instead, we're gonna get great cope puns like the Great White Cope.
A cope spot late in the match.
A what? Coca-Cola.
Copa-dope.
No, it's gonna be even better.
Dude, Edge was a terrible name. Like, it was a really terrible name for wrestling. It's just you associate it with like a character that did well, but it was an awful name.
I thought it was fine. He made it work.
I'm more than happy to see him move on. I think he is too. Like, Adam is a better chantable name than Edge.
I suppose so. Again, though, we have several Adams on this roster.
There's a lot of Adams. Maybe that will be a future stipulation at stake. Okay, let's continue here. You're next here with Luke Hale.
Luke Hale says, this was a really messy Dynamite. Multiple audio problems. Having to replay a segment twice is really bad. I couldn't hear what was said in some of the backstage segments either. We had maybe the weakest... Well, okay, yeah, I definitely agree. Like, some of those audio issues are... And it's not like 1 week, you know, like we've had transmission issues. Some of these things you can't necessarily avoid, but you would really, they're definitely worth criticizing, I would say. He also says, we had maybe the weakest promo I've heard from MJF. Really disappointing follow-up to last week's very strong segment with Jay White. I know people have been very positive about Toni Storm, but the new gimmick is not clicking for me. The overacting is too much. I mean,
I wish you could be a little more subtle.
It's unfortunately, it sort of is the gimmick, Luke Hale, but I mean, again, I could definitely see it not being for everybody.
That's just a case of you just don't like the character, which is fine. But like you can't really complain about like the elements that are vital to the character. You don't like the character and you don't have to.
He says he wasn't feeling this week's show, but hopefully next week will be strong.
Yeah, I agree on his point. Like, it felt like last week was the start of this story with MJF and Jay White. And like tonight's segment for the title match should have been like weeks down the road. It just felt like we went from like, we condensed a month in between these 7 days from the attack to title matches set. Yeah. Eddie from Austin writes, really enjoyed this episode. Felt like a throwback in a way to with a hot Jackson Lucha Brothers match to start, and some bodies that haven't been seen in a while, like Wardlow, Griff, and Kip Sabian. The MJF Cole vignettes have been largely hit or miss for me. No way I needed to see that treading water skit twice. And was Wardlow storming off at the end because his segment got cut for that crap? No, I don't think they really had a Iron Man scheduled for Wardlow and Griff Garrison. I'm generally forgiving of production issues, but the audio problems tonight were ridiculous. Was really hoping for a Darby update because those spots on Sunday looked lethal. Go climb Everest, dude. It's probably safer than a wrestling match.
Yeah, no health updates on Darby nor Mark Davis.
I mean, they typically don't do that. It's like they're very hush-hush about legitimate injuries, other than like maybe your bare bones facts that come out like in the press conference. But I mean, they don't have like this history of really shining a light on injuries or updates and such, unless they're necessitated to, like an Adam Cole, for instance.
Jesse from the 6 says, how was Tony Schiavone the voice of Adam Copeland's childhood? Was there a year-long period where after Schiavone joined JCP in 1983 and before the WWF took over the Toronto territory? Even if so, the voice of 10-year-old Copeland's life was surely Bob Caudle. I don't know how Copeland and Risa were watching WCW. I never saw WCW on TV, and there certainly weren't any Bunkhouse Stampede or Battle Bowl VHS tapes cassette to rent at the Queen Video near me in the 90s. Maybe I'm just too young. Perhaps there was a hot tape trading scene in Orangeville.
I'm sure he was a frequent.
Could he have not have got the Superstation TBS through cable? I did.
He probably could have. Yeah, I can't speak to.
Now, would he have been a child then? I guess that's more of a.
Well, he was born
concern.
in 73. So,
So what age does somebody stop
he's-
becoming a child?
So he's probably talking about like the mid-Atlantic stuff, which would have been well, let's say like into like early, like by the time he's like 10 years old, like Shivani is, he's the main voice there.
And would
or
he
at
have
least one of them.
would he have received any sort of JCP or Tony Schiavone broadcasting in Orangeville? He's saying.
Again, if he had access to like the Superstation and such, then yeah, he would have been. So it's again, it's before my era, so I can't really speak to like what the cable access was in the early 80s before I was born.
I tend to believe him.
I don't think I certainly feel like he's being legitimate with this.
Yeah.
Brian in New Jersey writes in, for people in the US using Fios, Spectrum, and DirecTV, tonight's Dynamite, and as of now, Rampage, Collision, and next week's Dynamite are not listed at their scheduled times on the DVR schedule, so be forewarned, US viewers with busy schedules. Yeah, in fact, Tony Khan even tweeted about this, about them being either listed, I think. I didn't look at the exact verbiage, but yeah, there seemed to be an issue with like the listings. Pretty decent show. I was hot and cold with it. My favorite parts were the closing segment, timeless Toni Storm and Rey Fenix against Nick Jackson, and Samoa Joe too. I'm glad that they replayed the Cole Strong segment after the sound was messed up the first time, but it wasn't any better when I could hear it. Happy to see the Hosses return, as before this, they've been getting underserved in AEW almost as much as the women. I shared in Taz Caliber's disgust with Callis's chair shot. It was clear next week is the big focus, especially when they were selling it during the finish of an Acclaimed match. The full post-match promos from WrestleDream are on their YouTube page and are well worth watching. Okay. So there you have it. Dynamite, the go-home show for Title Tuesday next week, head-to-head with NXT.
Oh, I feel as much Cody excitement Rhodes. About this Tuesday as I do a pay-per-view, certainly.
Well, it's a big show, and I don't think it's a nothing either. Like, we look at this as like, what does this mean in the grand scheme of things? I think in the grand scheme of things, you are looking at the fact that you still have WWE with half their TV rights for sale. You have AEW that is going to be into this mix, and how viable is a Tuesday night for a wrestling audience? And again, AEW being competitive with like it is to their advantage. I feel that this is a beefed up show that you don't get the excuse of they're just going up against the C show. Like, this is a loaded up show, and AEW being within striking distance of it, I think that's a feather in their cap to move their audience. It's a mobile audience, and one that can go against what is going to be in a very, very strongly pushed episode of NXT. Probably the hardest they have pushed in NXT in a long time.
And for fans that have only watched AEW and might not have paid attention to NXT in a long, long time, this gives WWE incentive to get those audiences to tune into their show for the first time in a long, long time. I mean, I think both companies will benefit from this.
Okay, well, we will have you covered next Tuesday, 10 p.m. Eastern time, The Invasion here on Rewind-A-Dynamite. It is a collaboration with Poison Rana's Davey Portman and Braden Harrington, as we will go through both shows. Way and I are watching Dynamite. They are watching NXT. Are you going to be trying to watch both?
I'll have it on in the background, but I'll have audio up for Dynamite.
Okay. Yeah. So that is coming up next Tuesday. Look forward to that. And Way and I are back on Thursday evening at postwrestlingcafe.com for our review of the 1987 film Predator, which just came up short for Best Picture, as we are going to be going through a very deep plot and the origins of CGI in the late 80s.
Okay. All right. Carl Weathers, Arnold Schwarzenegger,
Carl Weathers,
Body Ventura.
Yeah, it's a violent movie. So buckle up, and we will have you covered on Thursday. And then we're back Friday night, Rewind to SmackDown at 10 Eastern, Fastlane and Collision coverage Saturday. And Sunday, we have got
rest.
We have
MCU later.
I was going to say rest. MCU later, but that's on Monday. Man, it's tough.
No, that's Sunday night / Monday. Yeah.
Okay. So there you have it. And a post pro res dropping Friday. So write that all down with Karen and WH. That's it for us. Thank you for tuning in to Rewind-A-Dynamite.